Hello and welcome to what I think is possibly a long overdue episode of the Radio Times Poldark Podcast. I'm Sarah Doran.
I'm Susanna Lazarus.
And we have waited till the end of the series, the end of Series 4, to catch up with you all and have a look back at what we've just seen and look forward to what's going to happen in Season 5. I think we're going to kick off with the last episode of Season 4 or Series 4, whichever side of the Atlantic you're on, whatever way you prefer to describe it. Susanna, are you still reeling? Because I am.
It was a pretty sad moment, wasn't it?
Oh my gosh.
I mean, you could definitely see it coming, you know, visiting the doctor, getting a mysterious potion. She sort of fainted a couple of times in the last few weeks as well. So, you know, we knew that she wasn't at full health. That moment where the doctor said, now make sure you've got someone with you, a doctor who knows what's going on. And then
someone you trust.
Take it and you're like, this is going to go badly. But no, it was really sad, I thought. I thought it was sad because ultimately she died because of the two men who have warred over her for the entirety of the series.
We should say, we've been calling her she, who's she, the cat's mother. We are talking about Elizabeth.
Gosh, yeah, it would help to mention her name, wouldn't it? But the two men warring over her being Ross and George, and George just never got over his rival with Ross, and that's what pushed her towards taking the potion.
It's quite sad because she genuinely seemed to actually love George by the end. Like, she had developed a real kind of affection for him. She was content in her life, in whatever way she loved him, if you know what I mean.
I mean, I don't think I'd want to die holding George's hand, but
no,
that's just me. But yeah, I thought it was very impactful how the series did it. You know, Ross rushing to the house to see her, berating George for not letting him, and then George just saying she's dead.
I know. I mean, she's been with us since the very beginning of Series 1. It's going to be so bizarre to think of Poldark without Elizabeth.
Well, it's interesting, isn't it? Because I think in terms of her relationship with Ross, that seems to have run its whole course.
Completely.
You know? He talks about her as his past love. He's very much committed to Demelza, and their relationship had hit a place where I didn't really see it going anywhere new, because they'd found an equilibrium where they were kind of courteous to each other.
Completely.
But nothing more. And then with George, I guess also, like you said, she kind of found happiness with him. So where does that really go narratively? There's nowhere obvious beyond her bearing more children.
And there was only so much of, is Valentine mine? Is Valentine mine? Is Valentine mine? Like, the mystery could continue, but I mean, it would get to a point where you're like, well, he's basically Ross's twin.
And you've just got to remember that this is a time where, I mean, we're talking like late 1700s, like
completely.
Women sadly
died,
but also their job was to, you know, bear children, and that's played out in the storyline. And obviously we get very full, vivid female characters, but if you think about narratively where her character could go, she wasn't going to go out and forge a new carear, was she? Because she couldn't.
She wasn't going to find a new mine.
Exactly. And I think she kind of reached maybe the end of her road, so that I can get and see how story-wise it makes sense. But obviously the fallout to it is going to be huge. You know,
amazingly.
You've got Ross's grief and that really moving moment where you saw him kind of see her in her youth on that cliff top
dancing about. So sweet.
And then obviously we know what's going to happen with George. And actually we should also mention that flashback.
Amazing. At the very beginning, of course, we saw George, we saw Francis, we saw Verity. Oh, I know Verity's still alive, but you know, we saw Verity, we saw young Elizabeth, young Ross,
it was Agatha who was particularly
Agatha
cool.
Completely. I feel like, you know, Caroline Blackiston should be like, well, she's a much younger looking lady than she's been portrayed on screen.
And I think it was nice seeing Caroline Blackiston and Kyle Soller, who played Francis. Completely. Seeing their names in the opening credits was quite cool.
Lovely.
It's like really, a little throwback to the Poldark of old.
And I guess it kind of like, it feels like we're going to talk a little bit about Season 5 in a moment, and that we jump ahead, but it feels like kind of a bookend to a generation of Poldark, because we've had 4 series of, you know, Ross's story, Francis's story, Demelza's story. When we jump ahead, which we presume Debbie Horsfield will have to do come Series 5 if we follow the pattern of 2 books at a time, we're jumping to 1810 with the 2 new books. They are The Stranger from the Sea and The Miller's Dance, isn't it?
Exactly. Yeah. And we should say that, you know, the jump ahead is very much Winston Graham, the original author's jump ahead. So when you move into those 2 books, the narrative moves forward by an entire decade, and the focus shifts to the younger characters. And obviously the BBC could choose to do something different, but so far we're working on the assumption that they're going to take the next 2 books, because each series has been 2 books, and Debbie Horsfield, the writer of the TV series, has always stuck so closely to Winston Graham's plot that you can only presume that she will do the same here. Obviously if we jump forward 10 years, that makes Ross Poldark around his 50s.
Yeah.
So, you know, Aidan Turner, 35-year-old Aidan Turner, is going to suddenly have to look relatively middle-aged. I don't really see him going soft around the middle.
No, neither do I. I mean, we've seen this kind of aging up thing done before. We've seen it in Outlander recently, where they aged up two characters, Jamie and Claire, by like popping a few grey streaks in the hair. And then about 3 or 4 episodes after that happened, it just kind of disappeared and they looked like they always had. But we just mentioned Caroline Blackiston. Like, I mean, she looked so old in Poldark. I don't think she'll mind me saying that. Aunt Agatha was supposed to be in her late 90s. But then in that flashback, she looks so young, and that is new footage. So it just shows they're a dab hand over at the Poldark production.
Absolutely. I mean,
making people look older, so.
Of course. But it'd be interesting because obviously you set up a TV series built largely around a rather good-looking male, shall we say.
Yes.
And then you age him. I'm sure he'll still be a good-looking male in his 50s, but obviously he's no longer going to be the hot young thing that was in series 1. And you're also aging up Demelza as well, and you're definitely moving into a different stage in their lives. We should talk a bit about what Winston Graham did in the original books, and we should also say at this point we are going to talk in some detail about the plot of those books and the potential plot for series 5. So if you don't really want to know what's to come, maybe switch over now.
Yeah, I would advise, but do come back if you're tempted. If you are starting to switch over, we're lovely. We talk about spoilers, but we do it in a very respectful way. You mentioned that we might not have a hot young thing, and I don't want to like focus on the hot young thing, because I think we do have to appreciate great story, great character. There's more to Ross Poldark than his abs, you know?
Of course.
So we will be introduced to Jeremy Poldark at an older age, so he'll be 19.
This is the Poldark's eldest child.
Yeah, in 1810. And apparently very interested in engineering.
Yes, because I mean, obviously, if we're moving into this era, the early 1800s, where that started to play a part in these old mining industries and beyond.
If there's any kind of steam engine around, you know, he may have to remove his t-shirt because it's too warm, you know. So, not that we want this to happen. This is a complete joke. I know this divides a lot of people, but it's just a joke. Okay. He also has a sister.
Yeah, so we have already met young Clarence, although she's, again, not so young in 10 years' time. She's 17 years old, and the Poldarks have a youngest child, Isabella Rose. And the next book, The Stranger from the Sea, certainly explores these kind of young teenagers and their loves and their lives and their aspirations.
I think their relationships with their parents as well, because we know Ross and Jeremy are a little bit kind of, not quite at loggerheads, but I think Ross isn't sure that Jeremy's doing the best thing with his life.
They don't understand each other.
No. So maybe Ross is learning what it's like to have a young Ross Poldark on his hands.
And obviously, you know, you've got, if we think about George, he suffered such a shock at the end of series 4, but his children do still come into play here. We've got Valentine, who again is probably a similar-ish age to the young Poldarks, or the older Poldarks.
Kind of, yeah.
And when we meet him, how would we put this in a spoiler-free-ish way? He's not quite as well behaved as young Jeremy and Clarence, I'd say. Would that be fair?
I would say he's every inch his father's son. I wonder who his dad might be.
But I think we see him get into all sorts of scrapes, and his younger sister Ursula is also 10 years old at this point. I think it'll be interesting to see what becomes of George, because as he said at the end of series 4, like, my entire life was built around Elizabeth, and what is this all worth without her? And
the series does end on that brilliant scene where he's holding the baby, and you see the kind of snarl come up in his lip, or he's looking down at the grave, actually, not holding the baby, sorry, and you just see the curl of his lip, and you just think, oh wow,
that's just his resting face.
He's gonna wait for I feel like it's a long game revenge coming in there, even though it's not really, it's partly his own fault that his wife has died. So
absolutely,
you know.
But I think it'll be interesting to see, you know, when he does come out of mourning, how will he play a part in that story, and, you know, will he continue to pursue more women? Will he end up Prime Minister, which is a horrible thought?
Oh God.
I think not, but it'll be interesting to see where George goes. He's such a kind of deliciously conniving character.
Yeah, a real proper villain. Like in just a kind of calm and wonderful way.
Yes, exactly. And then we've got, obviously, our other characters as well that we saw so much of in recent series. It'll be interesting to see what comes of them now. Yeah,
so Dwight and Caroline, we know she's just come back to Cornwall at the end of the last series and said she wants to give life. So will they have some children? I don't know. I think Winston Graham might know, but I don't know.
And you know, if you were to pop on the internet and Google synopsis, you might find out. We're not going to tell you here.
Drake and Morwenna, who we saw get married at the end of series 4 as well. I mean, do you know what? I have not waited this long for them to get together, for them to fade into obscurity when they come back. In the books, I think that they've said that they're kind of portrayed as more of a supporting character. I'm just going to say this, Debbie Horsfield. If you decide you want to deviate and give us a little bit more Drake and Morwenna, I will not complain.
Well, this will be the interesting thing, won't it? Because we've had 4 series of Poldark where they've established a main cast that the viewers have given a lot of their time to. Now, in the books, the balance shifts and you focus a lot more on the kids, the next generation, and the older characters, while still the presents are more of a supporting cast. Will they do that in the TV series, or will Debbie Horsfield seek to kind of balance that out a little bit more and give them equal airtime, or, you know, to continue to leave our focus with Aidan Turner? Because let's face it, when you have big stars like Aidan Turner and Eleanor Tomlinson, do you want to make them supporting characters?
Completely. It's a big risk. And I mean, I know in 1996 there was a TV movie version of Stranger from the Sea, and we had Kelly Riley, who people might remember from Britannia, that's just aired, and Johan Grufford, who people remember from Liar and Fantastic Four. They were Clarence and Jeremy. So, you know, you had kind of big names in those kind of roles, but probably weren't as big names in 1996, but, you know, were kind of coming through. So you've got the issue of, do you get new breakout stars to do that?
It'll be interesting to see who they cast, because whoever they cast will have to be teenage. So but I mean, there are some big teenage names kicking around. We'll see. And I mean, you've already got a great cast who they are retaining aging up. But it'll be interesting to see who the next generation turns out to be. And
I think if Debbie Horsfield has to be very careful in getting that balance that will keep people tuning in, I'm curious as to whether she might, for the first time ever, do some sort of minor deviation from the book and have something that bridges the gap between the two, that brings us up to there, some sort of montage, perhaps.
Well, it'll be interesting to see, because, you know, she is so faithful to these books. And we know that the Winston Graham estate has been involved in the TV series. But obviously this is a TV series, not books, and
exactly,
and it's got a loyal viewership. And I wasn't really hoping for a 10-year time jump. I'm happy to see where it goes, but I'm also quite attached to these characters we've been following for so many episodes and 4 series.
We'll have some new characters, though, hopefully, to become as equally attached to and fall in love with.
Yes, absolutely. So we should tease a couple of them, maybe. There's a chap called Stephen Carrington, who is the titular stranger from the sea, who I think Jeremy Poldark rescues towards the start. Yeah, he washes
up on the beach, doesn't he?
The next book in the series. And he is not always what he seems, would be fair to say. He certainly gets adopted into the Poldark family, but then what's he hiding? I think will probably be something that plays out.
And he'll have quite an impact on the family. Let's leave it there, maybe.
Yep. And there's another character called, I'm going to try and say this correctly, QB Trevanian.
This is like Tholly Tregills all over again.
QB, who certainly captures the attention of some of the younger male generation. QB being a girl, we should say, if that wasn't already clear.
And with a surname like that, a well-to-do lady.
Yes, exactly. And obviously, you know, we had so much of the first 4 series were class wars, really, weren't they? And it looks like that's set to continue. And it'll be interesting to see how the elder Poldarks, given that their relationship was born out of a kind of crossover from one class to the other, how they might respond to their children falling for or being set up with people from different class or the same class.
And I suppose when you look at, we mentioned conflicts that have long existed, how they might have learned from what's happened between the Warleggeds and the Poldarks in terms of, you know, entering into any possible new conflicts with anybody. Have they learned any lessons? You know, has Elizabeth's death taught anyone anything?
Yes, it'll be interesting to see whether it's chastened George and Ross, and whether it's exacerbated their hostilities or cooled them.
I'm very much looking forward to this season, I think.
Absolutely, and I think it's not too long till they start filming, and I'm sure they'll be back with us soon. It'll be interesting to see if it is indeed the last series, because we are expecting it to be. There's certainly been rumblings, and there's plenty of reporting on radiotimes.com about whether it will or won't be. But yeah, I think it'll be interesting to see where they go with this, how how much longer Poldark will continue.
And I know Debbie Horsfield has had a lot to say about it too, our very own Ben Dell, who produces wonderful weekly Poldark recaps that I am reliably informed by friends at parties are widely read. So don't forget to check that out on radiotimes.com as well. I do love Ben's recaps, Susanna.
They are fun. They're very fun.
Even when he talks about vicars that do things to toes.
Which I never want to hear about again.
No.
He's gone. We
And
don't have to
thankfully
talk
at the
about him
end-
anymore. Let's just say maybe that's the reason we didn't do the podcast this year. I didn't want to talk about that.
Well, listen, we have been very pleased to be back with you. We are looking forward to Poldark Season 5. Are you? What do you hope will happen? Do you hope Debbie Horsfield stays truthful to the books? Would you like to see her deviate? Do you have any dream castings? Susanna, do you have any dream castings?
Oh, you're putting me on the spot.
I know.
I don't know. Not off the top of my head, but I'm sure there's plenty of exciting young actors who could really be given a platform.
Who is the next big thing? Who is your Jeremy? Who is your Clowance? You know, what would you like to see happen in future? If you haven't read the books, give us your dream plots. We are, of course, at Radio Times. Don't forget to subscribe to our YouTube channel for all the latest Poldark news as it happens. And of course, as we've mentioned, you can check out all the latest information from Debbie Horsfield, Aidan Turner, Eleanor Tomlinson. We do like to give them a call up every now and again for the latest Poldark gossip on radiotimes.com. Until next time, I'm sure we'll be back, Susanna, at some point.
Of course.
Hopefully, since there's no more vicar, we'll be fine. Until next time, I've been Sarah Doran.
I've been Susanna Lazarus.
And thanks so much for listening.